Hi friends, welcome to Suhṛt. Today we are going to look at the controversy which is surrounding Constitutional Amendment Act 2019. Previously it was called as Constitutional Amendment Bill CAB, and President has given his consent, and now it has become an act of law. Now we can see that there have been protests which has erupted in several parts of the country, and the law and order situation is looking quite grim at this point of time, as authorities are still trying to grapple with the situation and trying to bring things under control. Let us see how that thing goes. But at the outset, let us see what exactly is Constitutional Amendment Act and what exactly is NRC. uh, Both of them have been interchanged, and it has been confused. That is not the case. Both are very different. And let us see what exactly it is CAA, that is Constitutional Amendment Act, and how it is affecting or not affecting people. And let us try and solve some of the myths which have been around. What is the amendment all about? So the amendment is essentially on the Indian Citizenship Act of 1955. So that has been amended now, and that is what we are calling it as Constitutional Amendment Act. So it is basically an amendment on the Citizenship Act, the original Citizenship Act. Now, how based on the Citizenship Act 1955, how can somebody become citizen of India, right? So that is through four ways. One is you can gain citizenship by birth, you can gain citizenship by descent, right? Or you can gain citizenship by registration, um, which is basically like you have stayed in the country legally, that is for a period of more than 7 years, and you are applying for the citizenship, and through a certificate of registration, citizenship is awarded to you. And then comes citizenship by naturalization. So these are the four basic ways how one can be a citizen of India. Now, predominantly, what the Act amends is the the definition of an illegal immigrant. Now, none of the the four methods which is prescribed in the Indian Citizenship Act 1955 is applicable to an illegal immigrant. There is a clause inserted which basically allows uh, people or illegal immigrants from the country Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and who are the communities who are Latin or who are not qualified as an immigrant. So basically, they are the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Buddhists, the Jains, Parsis, and the Christian community from these three countries who have entered into India on or before 31st of December 2014. This date is very important. Who have entered India on or before 31st December 2014, they are not to be treated as an illegal immigrant for the purposes of the Act. Why it has been done? As per the central government, as per the Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah, who has described that these communities, these six communities who are the minority communities in these three countries, they have been persecuted by the state, which basically follows rule of Islam, and they have been persecuted all these years, and that is where these people who look forward to India as their savior, there has to be some consideration to them, right? Now this is the whole premise of this particular amendment. However, this amendment doesn't talk about religious persecution at all, and it basically defines who is an illegal immigrant and who is not, right? So what is going to happen through this amendment? These illegal immigrants who are from these three countries. Why these only these three countries, and why not countries like Sri Lanka or Bhutan or Nepal? These three countries were part of the undivided British India, and uh, because of the partition which happened in 1947, these communities, especially these communities, without their um, acceptance, they got stuck in these different countries, and they got persecuted, largely got persecuted. The percentages of these communities, minority communities in Pakistan, Afghanistan, as well as Bangladesh, the then East Pakistan, have dwindled from double digits to less single digits. So that is where this particular provision have been made, right? So this is essentially targeted to provide relief to these illegal immigrants. Well, they are not to be termed illegal immigrants anymore, and anyone who's, and this law is not applicable to anyone who has entered India after 31st of December 2014. So that is basically your cutoff date, right? Well, now why is there so much of protest, right? Now let us look at things objectively. Now, are citizens in general, Indian citizens, affected by this amendment? Absolutely not. Indian citizens, whoever it is, be it Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, Parsis, Christians, whoever else, and atheists, any Indian citizen is basically not affected by this, who is already a citizen, is basically not affected by this law at all. This law is not applicable for them. This is a very important distinction one has to make. Second, this bill is being, um, being, spread across like this is an anti-Muslim bill, or this bill is against Muslim citizens of India. Well, one cannot be more, contrary to this. The fact is completely 180 degrees, contrary to this particular spin, which is going around in media. Well, this bill is, I would say, this bill is Muslims friendly, Indian Muslims friendly. The reason being, imagine this scenario: tomorrow there is a civil war, or there is some sort of percussion in Pakistan, or something like, you have unrest, civil unrest, as it has happened in countries like Iraq, Syria, Yemen, etc. If that happens in Pakistan, now that population, the Muslim population, majority Muslim population, is going to um, come towards India, and they'll get absorbed as refugees, illegal, non-illegal, whatever you say. Now at that point of time, the Indian Muslims, like say for example, now if the government, the central government or the state government, if they are going to bring in some sort of provision or some economic benefits for the targeted towards the minority, especially the Indian Muslims. Now, what is going to happen? Indian Muslims, the genuine Indian Muslims, are going to lose out, and the illegal immigrants, the illegal Muslim immigrants from, say, for example, Pakistan or Bangladesh, they will rather, enjoy the benefits, and Indian Muslims will get left out. So this bill actually acts as a savior for the Indian Muslims. In a way, it basically gives a protective shield for the Indian Muslims, and it gives a constitutional protection for them. So there is a huge amount of spin which is around in the media, in the public space, which needs to be corrected. Right now, is this bill discriminatory, and why there is this often, lot of journalists, lot of public figures have come out and said that, hey, why are you singling out only Muslims? Well, because of the fact of the matter that Muslim, these three countries, that is Afghanistan, Pakistan, as well as Bangladesh, all these three countries are Islamic Republic, right? Their republic is based on the book of Islamic law. So clearly, there is the the distinction is being made over there of who's minorities over there and who are the ruling majority, right? And again, as I mentioned in my previous point, this bill is definitely not against Muslim citizens of India. Rather, it is going to provide a constitutional shield for them in the decades to come, right? Now, what is NRC and why people are up in arms against NRC? Now, NRC is just a process. It is basically a process. It's a registry of citizen. This was conducted. The process of NRC was implemented in the state of Assam under Supreme Court's supervision. Now, what happened after multiple claims, counterclaims, objections, etc. A total of almost three plus crore people got included in the NRC, which means that they were deemed as valid citizens of the state of Assam and valid citizens of India, whereas 19 lakh people were out of NRC. Now, what people had to do to get into the NRC, the registry of citizenship, they had to prove their citizenship through legacy documents, which means that one has to prove that his father, his descendant, right, they were, citizens, rightful citizens of India, or the grandfather was the rightful citizens of India. How do you prove it? Well, there are 15 documents. It's a pretty complex process in place, but in the gist, to explain, it is basically through electoral records. If there was electoral records, election started in the state of Assam from 1952, and then these general elections. So whether the records names were there in the electoral records of your immediate descendant, your father or your grandfather. So how that is how one needs to prove their citizenship. As simple as that. Now, as Home Minister Amit Shah has said, NRC is something which is going to be implemented in all states throughout the country. This is something which is welcome, right? Because ultimately, central government has a primary duty to enumerate their citizens, to make a list of who are their rightful, who's her rightful citizens, who are not, who are the illegal immigrants, and potentially the illegal immigrants needs to be handled in the way as it is appropriate per the book of law. So this is what is CAB or CAA and NRC is all about. Well, there is nothing um, discriminatory. There is nothing which is out of ordinary in this bill, and you can get to read a lot of foreign media, which is basically terming this bill as a step towards Hindu Rashtra and all. Well, facts cannot be as far as it can be, right? So definitely, this is all propaganda which is being spread, and this bill is definitely not discriminatory. People need to understand what exactly it is before forming an opinion about it. Hope this video was helpful, and you are now better informed about what is CAA and what is NRC. Thank you.